for having me. The pleasure is to see all of you here, and not the other way around. In other words, from my point of view, where I see the importance of the continuation of the Jewish tradition, the Jewish heritage, and the love for Israel, it's a real pleasure to see all of you here. You know, when I just walked in there, you've got a pasuk there, "V'bacharta b'chaim," and you will choose life. And I think that's a very important sentence, because at the end of the day, you can choose life and have a good time and play golf, which you should be doing as well, and play soccer. I think you've got plenty of soccer fields here. But what you need to do as proud Jews is to know and understand where you come from, your present, and where you're heading. So let's look a little bit at what we have in front of us. As you know, and I will go a little bit into the BDS effect that we today see in Europe and the United States. I think here you probably see less of it. Am I right in saying that? There's less of the boycott, divest, sanction of Israel. You know what boycott is, I assume? You know what divest is? Don't be shy. If you are not sure, ask me the question. I don't know how good a teacher I am. You've got some very good teachers here, but I'll try to be as good a teacher as I can. But boycott, divest, sanction of Israel. And today, all over the world, it has become the fashion today to attack Israel wherever we can. Now, the boycott, divest, sanction movement, if you look, and I see that you've got a lot of technology here, laboratories, you go in there, you click on BDS, and you will see that what they tell you is that they are pushing for the boycott, divest, sanction action against the state of Israel until Israel follows the international rules and ensures that the Palestinians will have their own state. But in fact, this is not quite what happens. Because if you look day by day what's going on, you appreciate that it is not that quite that way. So if you ever come across to Europe or the United States, I don't know whether you have demonstrations here, and you see a demonstration by the BDS movement, you will see that they keep on chanting, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. In other words, from the river, the Jordan River, to the sea, to the Mediterranean, Palestine will be free. There's no place for the Jewish state there. So, at the end of the day, remember, what they say and what they do are two different things. They are interested at the end of the day to ensure that there will be no Jewish state. Now, economically, they are not succeeding. And as a matter of fact, I was just shown a letter by, I think it was Levi Eshkol, who was the finance minister, or Golda Meir, but Levi Eshkol also wrote something there about the importance of strengthening the Israeli economy. As you're aware, I'm the president and CEO of Israel Bonds, and we sell Israeli government bonds to strengthen the Israeli economy. Now, economically, they haven't succeeded, and how do we know that? So let me just read you a little part here, and I'll do it very slowly so that you'll understand it. You've heard about Bloomberg. Bloomberg is an American news broadcast station. They've also got newspapers, and they are one of the leading economic broadcasters in the United States. And what do they say about the Israeli economy? In a June article, in other words, 2 or 3 months ago, Bloomberg had a headline, Israel boycott is failing when measured by main economic gauge. In other words, when you measure, what is, that has it affected it? And they continue by saying this: signs that an international movement to isolate Israel is gaining ground, that there are some signs, yet an examination of foreign capital flowing into the countries shows the opposite trend, a steep increase. So far, have you followed me? Yeah? In other words, there's more foreign investment in Israel today, 3 times what it was when the BDS movement started. Foreign investment in Israel hit a record high last year of 285 billion, a near tripling from 2005, when the so-called boycott, divest and sanction movement was started by a group of Palestinians. So, first of all, from an economic point of view, there is no effect, or the effect is small. There are cases here and there. You probably read in the paper, even here in Mexico, you see that now and then there will be some demonstrations against some of the businesses, but generally speaking, it's small. And your job is to ensure and make sure that wherever you can, you buy Israeli products. Even though it hasn't got a major effect, we, as Jews, have to make sure that, one, we support any business that produces or that sells Israeli products. So, for example, when you come to buy wines here, I know that there's some good wines from Chile and Argentina, could even be from Mexico, I'm not so sure about that, but there's some good wines around South America. But there's some excellent Israeli wines. Make sure that if you're going to buy a couple of bottles of wines, at least one of it should be from a product from Israel. That way you strengthen the Israeli economy. I was a month and a half ago in Berlin, in Germany. And there is a famous department store, KBW. Oh, KBW. It's good that I've got David here that he can assist me. But anyhow, that was a major Jewish store before the war. The Nazis took it. And of course, after the war, it never came back to the Jewish owner. But it doesn't matter. They decided about 6 months ago that they're going to label all the Israeli wine bottles. And I went there when I was at the visit to check if that was the case. And I can tell you that they didn't have no labeling whatsoever. I bought a couple of bottles of Israeli wines, gave it to my friends, and told them every Friday afternoon, go and buy a couple of bottles of Israeli wines, because that way you will convince the department store that business is good with Israel. So it's very important to make sure that we are involved in that particular battle, even though it doesn't have much of an effect, because it has got a message back to the BDS advocates that, listen fellas, you're not going to win this battle. We have got people outside of Israel, we've got Jews outside of Israel, we've got lovers of Israel that are going to ensure that you will not succeed. But the economic one is not the main issue. The main issue today is the battle over the hearts and minds of the young people, and the facts and all of the propaganda that the BDS movement are trying to push out. So if you look today at what they actually tell you, you will see that one of the things that they say is the colonialists, the Zionists, came along and took over a land from the poor Palestinians who had tilted and sowed and grown and lived on that land for thousands upon thousands of years. Now, remember one thing, I'm not going to get into here, into the Tanakh, the Bible, that has got 3,000 years of Jewish existence in the Middle East, in the land of Israel, in Eretz Israel. Every day you've probably got your shiurim in Tanakh, and you can see day in and day out that we were everywhere there. But let me just give you some very simple example of what happened 150 years ago. And that I also have to read because I don't know it by heart. But I think it's very important, and that is probably more important that you, at the end of the day, study and learn the facts within the school here and even outside of the school. Because it is very important when you leave the school and you go to university that when you're being challenged by the people that attack Israel, that you know how to answer. So let's have a look at 3 individuals, and I'm just taking a very small little part. There's literally thousands of examples, poets, writers, many people that came and visited Israel over many, many years and wrote back. So we do have a history of what's going on. So for instance, in 1857, that's about 150 years ago, you had the British Council in Palestine, James Finn. He wasn't Jewish, he wasn't Zionist, most likely he was anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish, but doesn't matter. He wrote the following to the Foreign Office, in which he described the land as follows. The country is, to a considerable degree, empty of inhabitants, and therefore its greatest need is that of a body of population. Did you all understand it? And the country was empty, there was no one there, and what it needed is a body of population. So to accuse us of being colonialists is not in line with history. Just remember that. That's one example. You probably have heard, and you might have studied Mark Twain here in your studies in school here, and he went across to Palestine. By the way, Palestine is not a Palestinian name. It's not an Arabic name. It's from Palestina, as you probably have learned, from the Romans that gave it the name. 12 years later, in his famous memoir, this is Mark Twain, writes, "A desolation is here that not even imagination can grace with the pomp of life and action. We never saw a human being on the whole route." In other words, he went up from the Galilee, Sea of Galilee, towards Jerusalem. And he didn't see, there were some nomads, there were some Arabs here and there, but generally speaking, generally speaking, there were very few people. In Jerusalem, we saw Jewish majority, because we always had a Jewish majority in Israel. L'chaim. What? I thought it was tequila, but it's only water. In 1939, Winston Churchill in 1939, you've heard about him, the big Second World War leader, quoted by his biographer, Martin Gilbert, observed that far from being persecuted, the Arabs have crowded into the country and multiplied until their population has increased more than the Jewish population. To put Churchill's statement in another way, the Zionist transformation of an empty land was the impetus for the Arabs to rush to take advantage of the fruits of Jewish labor. Now, I think all of these facts are extremely important to remember, because at the end of the day, these are the kind of arguments that you're going to be hearing day in and day out. And let me just give you one example. You look around today and you see what's going on in Europe, and you ask yourself, isn't it a little bit similar to what Churchill just said? Actually, it's exactly the same. What's happening today is that you've got a mass of refugees that are pushing up towards the north of Europe, because there they get tremendous social benefits. They don't even want to stay in Greece. They don't want to stay anywhere down in southern Europe, because life is not as good there, but they want to go up north to get all of the benefits. Now, do I feel sorry for the refugees? Of course I do. It's awful situation to be in. But let me tell you this, when you have a United Nations that has got 20 resolutions against the state of Israel in 1 year, and 1 resolution about Syria, there's something wrong in this world. It's not a world of justice, it's a world that only has political consideration that they take into account. There are over 450,000 people have been killed, murdered and butchered in Syria. There are 50,000 children of your age. Look around. They've been killed, murdered. And there hasn't been a serious resolution of trying to stop that conflict. I mean, the other day they're trying to go for a ceasefire. But had the United Nations 5 years earlier decided to forcefully stop the fighting in Syria and establish safe havens, you wouldn't have 2 million migrants coming today to Europe. There's no question about that. So at the end of the day, you have a world today that is basically anti-Israel, come what may. And why would I say to you today that, for instance, the BDS movement is anti-Semitic? I mean, you know, you could say there's nothing wrong with criticizing the state of Israel. We all do it. I do it. But why would the BDS be regarded as anti-Semitic? I'll tell you why they are. Apart from the fact that they tell you from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and they want to basically have one state, there's a different reason. There are 200 conflicts today in the world. 200. There are the Syrian conflict. You see what's going on in the whole of the Middle East.